Hello again. On this video we are going to add some final detail to this animation. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a new shape layer. And this will appear. So we are going to go here to the shapes panel and we are going to select the ellipse tool. And we are going to draw an ellipse, an oval that's just on the bottom of her feet. This ellipse will be her shadow. So at the moment this is on top of everything, not behind the character, but we're going to fix that later on. First of all, I'm going to take this pan behind or anchor point tool that you know already, and I want to be sure that the anchor point is on the center of the ellipse. Okay, so now that we have that settled, I'm going to start animating this shadow so it moves when the character jumps. Okay, so I'm going to press S on the keyboard to bring up the scale. Then I'll create the first keyframe here, and I'll add additional keyframes on frame number 5, 10, and 15, as you can see now on the video. So, there we go. And I don't need to add a keyframe on frame 17 because the shadow won't be bouncing. So we're just going to animate these keyframes that I created. So for frames number 0 and 5, nothing should change. On the keyframe on frame number 10, I'm going to remove this link on scale, and I'm going to edit the first number, which is the horizontal value, and I'm going to enter 80%. So this way, when she jumps, her shadow will tend to shrink a little bit. This will also help emphasize the movement of the jump. Now I'm going to take the vertical value, which is the second number, and I'm going to enter 90%. So I'll change both values, but not proportionally. And now I'm going to assign ease for each one of these keyframes, as we did on the previous video. Now I'm going to copy all these keyframes, stand on frame number 20, and paste. And by the way, I should rename this shape layer and call it Shadow. Now I'm going to go to Layer, Arrange, Send Layer to Back. Okay, so now we've sent the layer behind the background. So we're going to Layer, Arrange, Bring Layer forward. So now by doing so, we are taking this layer one step forward, and we can see it on top of our background. Now it's time to preview the animation on the shadow. Okay, so I like how it moves. I think it complements the jump. So if we wanted to, we could select the shape here and change the fill color to any other color. So in this case, I had my color selected beforehand, but you can select any color that you want for this shadow. Also be sure that the stroke for this shape is disabled. You can disable it by entering 0 as a value, and there is another way to do it. Let me show it to you. In order to straight up deactivate it, you have to alt-click on this icon 3 times. So each time you alt-click, it's cycling through different options, which is normal color, different gradients, and deactivated. Also have in mind that you can do the same thing with the fill. You can alt-click and cycle through gradients, fill colors, and deactivate it. Okay, so this is the result. So right now I think I'm going to press T on the keyboard to bring the opacity and move it down a bit, because I want the shadow to blend a bit with the color of the background. And as you can see, I'm fine-tuning the number for the opacity. I'm moving it a bit down. I'm going 70%. By the way, I'm not creating any keyframe here. This is a global change that affects the entire timeline. So far so good. I'm happy with how it looks now. Okay, so now I'm going to select anything here. Now that the layers panel is activated, I'm going to press Ctrl A to select everything. So now I'm going to hit U on the keyboard, and that will collapse everything. Okay, so we can continue working. Now I want to add another detail that I've been thinking about, which are some drops of sweat. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Shape Layer. And I'm going to rename it as Sweat. So now I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm going to draw a line that goes from here where the headband is to around here, let's say. And I'll click and drag to create a curve. So I want to disable the fill for this shape layer, so I'm going to alt-click on fill 3 times until it's disabled. And now I'll alt-click on the stroke and that will enable it. I'm going to change it from 5 to 8 points. Now going back to the layers panel, I am going to unfold stroke and I'm going to change the line cap to a round cap. And next I am going to add trim paths. So we are going to use this option once again, but this time it will be different. So I want it to start at 0 and to end at 1%. So this is very similar to what we did with the hands, if you remember. By creating a very short stroke, this will resemble a circle. So we have this other option called offset, and let me show you what happens when I move it around and play with it. Can you see that this little circle is moving along the line that we've drawn? Okay, now I'm going to Ctrl C to undo everything. And now I'm going to click on the stopwatch under offset. So we are going to animate this movement. So I'm going to start at this keyframe and I'm going to end this movement on frame number 20. So I'm going to place one keyframe here. So let me explain the numbers that we have here under offset. As you can see, we have degrees and we have 0x. So if I change 0x to 1x, this little circle will move from the beginning to the end of this line one time. So we are telling Adobe After Effects we want this circle to travel one time from one point to the other between these keyframes. And for example, if we enter 2, it will make that travel 2 times and so on, but I'm going to simply leave it on 1. Okay? Now we're going to collapse everything here and we're going to press T on the keyboard to bring the transparency or opacity. And by the way, I always call it transparency instead of opacity because it helps me remember that I have to press T on the keyboard for the shortcut. So you may want to remember that. So I'm going to enter 0% transparency on the first one and 100% on the last keyframe. Or maybe even 80% so it's not a solid color. Okay, so now you can see that this is like a drop of sweat. I'm going to start this animation on frame number 5. And I want this animation to end after frame number 20. So I'm going to stand on frame number 20 and I'm going to press Ctrl Shift D on the keyboard and this will cut the layer into 2 parts. And I will keep this part and delete the other one. So now I'm sure that this animation is ending after frame 20. So this is a different approach. You can cut the layers, you can move them around, stretch it, etc. So I want this to end on a fade out, so I want the last frame to be 0% transparency. So as you can see, it's looking good at the moment. Right now I'm fine tuning everything, so this animation ends exactly at frame number 20. And I'll also make this end on frame number 20. Okay, so we have the first drop of sweat ready. Now let's move on and create all the other ones. So of course I want another drop of sweat for the second shape. So I'm going to take this layer and hit Ctrl D to duplicate. I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to uncover all the used keyframes and I'm going to move this over here, let's say. So right now I'm fine-tuning the position for the keyframes on my timeline, but don't worry, you don't have to be perfect about this. So now I'm going to parent both of the drops of sweat, both of these layers, to the null object, so they follow her while she jumps. Let's see how this looks. So it's looking good for the most part, but I don't want these drops to follow her when she is landing. I want the animation to end at the top of the jump. So it's time to fine-tune the keyframes again. So I'm going to hit U, as in used, to bring out all the used keyframes on this layer. And I'm going to move the keyframes around in a way where the drops of sweat are disappearing or not being visible after she's at the top of the jump. Okay, so this looks good, this looks natural, so I'm going to duplicate this one and delete the old one. So this new duplicate already has all the changes I just made, so I don't have to do them all over again. So this will save me some time. Okay, there we go. So I'll keep fine-tuning this because I don't like that you can't see the drops of sweat at the start. So I'm going to change that. So this is a very normal process at the time of animating something. You always go back and forth and fine-tune the keyframes and what you already have. So let's preview it once more to see if this is looking good or not. So, okay, I'm quite happy with the result now. So right now I think I'll modify one last thing about these drops of sweat. I want to move the positions for these drops of sweat, but I'm not going to create any keyframe because I want to create a global change. I don't want to animate this change. So I want to just take the black arrow and using the arrow keys on my keyboard and move them around until I'm happy with where they are. So I want to move them near where the headband is. Okay, so far so good. I think this is looking quite nice at the moment. Okay, so I will need to do this on the other side as well. So now I'm going to teach you a very cool trick on Adobe After Effects that we haven't used so far, which is to pre-compose. So what I'm going to do is to select these two layers by holding Shift to add to the selection, right click and pre-compose. So now I have created a pre-composition with those two layers. A pre-composition is basically a group of layers, so they are all grouped into one. You can also do some advanced stuff like creating new animations for the entire group, but we won't do that this time. Now I'll hit Ctrl D to duplicate this pre-comp. Now I'll bring scale, remove the link that constrains the proportions, and under the horizontal value we'll enter -100. And now we have the same thing but flipped to the other side. So I like how this is overlapping the top of her head, so I think I want to replicate that on the other one too. I'm going to take the black arrow and I'm going to modify it just a tiny bit. So these drops of sweat are starting around here. And as you can see, I'm modifying the position by using the arrow keys as I usually do. Okay, so far so good. And just to show you what I can do, I could take these two precompositions and make another precomp of those. So I'm going to rename this new precomp as sweat drops. And we could also duplicate this new precomp and create a second row of drops of sweat. So I could modify the position of this just a little bit, bring it down a little bit, and I'm going to modify the scale so they are not so similar and bring it down to 80%. So as you can see, this is very effortless and very easy to do once we have pre-comped everything. I could even modify the entire timing of this layer by clicking and dragging to move this layer to the right. Okay, so it's looking good at the moment. I'm fine-tuning some last elements, but as you can see, it's very easy to do these modifications. And it's really adding something else to the animation. It's not looking so simple now. So I think it's time to call this animation finished. This is the final animation now. So if you have made it this far, congratulations, but we still have one final step, which we'll address on the next video, and that is exporting.